All right, welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing today, bud?
Fantastic, man. Excited to be here. Excited to
Yeah,
chat
yeah.
with you.
Where are you located right now?
So I'm just outside of Toronto in Canada, couple hours outside of Toronto. It's still tail end of winter, a little chilly, but we're on a bay here and it's just thawed out, so it's nice to have a better view out the window.
That's so good. That's so good. We're recording live here in Australia, so it's been really warm. So hot here this last few months, but it seems to be changing now. We're going to be heading into winter soon. So we are at the precipice of this podcast. I would love for you to please tell the audience a little bit about you and who you are. If you could share with us a minute, that'll be awesome.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Chris Crawford, yeah, and where to start, right? But I'll give you the high level because I'm sure we'll get into some good stuff. So I started my first business 17 and a half years ago. It was 2007, and I was 12 years old, as you can tell when you look at me. And I've had that company. Now it more or less runs on its own. We're around the 14, probably getting closer to 15 million in sales there. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I built that from the ground up, sleeping in my car, going door to door. I've spent the
Sleeping in
last
your
decade.
car. Tell us a little bit about that. Why were you sleeping in your car? What's going on there?
Oh man. Yeah, let's get right into it. So I quit a comfy career. I mean, if I go back a little before that, I'm a high school dropout. I grew up small town mindset, right? And for many of us that grow up and our thoughts kind of match the people we grow up around, right? And I lied on a resume and got a half decent job and spent 8 years there. And but I got to this point of I can't do this anymore. When you're in that, I know your story as well, Matt. From listening to you share it, you know that point of where we're doing something and we're just like, I just can't. That path is a death sentence to me, right? So I finally got the courage up and I quit and I started my own business and I walked out and I remember just feeling like I felt like I was alive. I was like, this is it. And I didn't make any money. I didn't make any money for it. My first 6 months were real bad. I burned through my savings and maxed out credit cards, got behind on payments. My phone was getting cut and then getting further in that first year, it was a disaster. I had to move out of my apartment. I was, sleeping at friend's place, and yeah, there was a point I was camping out, sleeping in my car, just going nowhere fast. So
So,
that's the beginning.
so you had this good job. I want to understand this. So you had a good job, and you decided you wanted to get out of the job, and you wanted to go and build your own pathway. Tell me a little bit about what that's like, because I know in my journey it was the scariest thing to make a decision to walk out of security. Like you're getting money, right? You're getting paid a regular wage or salary. You've got family or you got things going on, and then to stop that to have nothing. Like what is that mind? What went through your mind when you're deciding that?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately at that time, I didn't have family. It was just me.
Right.
But I was scared. It was this weird mix. Like it was probably about the 6 year mark. I started to feel that like I just wasn't fulfilled in it. I was kind of, when you're doing something, you're just not. And I had ideas. Now I know a lot more about mindset. So looking back, I know that I was afraid, and my mind was coming up with ways to keep me stuck, right? Um, and it went on for a couple years, and as time went on I started to feel really burned out. It was like the longer I stayed doing something I didn't want to do, the more draining it was on my soul. And it just,
Right.
I got to this tipping point where it was like I can't continue this. And finally got the courage to give my notice and quit. And then it was sort of one of those, it was sort of one of those things of like, I don't want to burn this bridge, you know, so I stayed on for a few months and I was like, I want to make sure this bridge is solid here so I can run back across it if I have to. Uh, but then my final day came and I remember the day walking out of there and it was like it was like a blur, like busy traffic. It all went fuzzy into the background. And I just remember walking across the pavement and I can just so remember this moment. And I felt like my heart was beaming. Like it was like I could feel this like glow. And in that moment, I knew I would never go back. I knew that that was it. But it was tough to get to that point to make that leap.
Yeah. And then from there, so you're you left this job, right? You went into a new venture.
Yeah.
Did you have anything planned? Like, was it something that like you had this you knew like what was the next steps? Like you came out of this job and now you're like, okay, now I'm going to be a millionaire. Was it like that?
Yeah. You know, we all think that. We all think, I'm going to go start my own thing. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to have all this time. Life is going to be amazing. And for anyone that's started, we pretty quickly find out it's not that easy. Um, yeah, so my idea was to do like promotional materials for bands and musicians. So I'm a
Ah,
musician myself, grew up, played in
interesting.
bands and stuff. And so I thought I'm gonna go do this for bands and musicians. So my I had business cards and I had a stamp, you know, like a stamp you dip in the ink and then for some reason and my logo was my hand like this. So I had like made this into my logo, right? So I had business cards and a stamp, and that I thought that was all I needed. And man, it's so I haven't even thought about that in forever. So
That
my
is so
idea is
good.
I'm gonna go hand my business cards out to bands that are playing shows. So I go to bars and whatever, and well, within a few months, I realized these guys don't have any money to spend. You know, like they have zero money to invest in their business. So um, that was the initial idea. But you know, it's funny how you know when you start, and we are kind of talking about this earlier. When you start and you just got to keep going, and you slowly things you could have never expected appear in your path. You know, so I got to I was broke, and in that point, I was telling you about where I was struggling, and I needed to make some money. I didn't want to go back to that job. I saw a job posting for a sales job and I went, and this guy was doing door-to-door sales. And he's like, "Oh, it's simple. You just take your flyer and you go hand it out door to door." And I'm like, "Okay."
Right.
So I was like, "I'm gonna go do this and
But
make a
they
little
make
money."
it
Well, I was
sound so simple, right? So easy.
so simple. So we just take the flyer and go to the doors and get money. Like, okay. And you know, talking a big game, like you can make $100,000 a year, and this is what 17 years ago. So yeah, sure. I was terrified to go. Like you know, nervous, like sweating. And now looking back, like that was the real barrier of my business was I was so afraid of sales. I was just so afraid to sell and put myself out there. You know, my first bunch of doors, I probably didn't make eye contact. You know, I was like a boy on prom night trying to dance with a girl, like just you know, you wouldn't want to buy any, like just handing my stuff out, running out the door. But, you know, you do it and quickly it's, there's a thing this, they call it systematic desensitization. Fancy term means the dragon you're afraid of, the more time you spend close to it, the more you overcome the fear. So just going door to door and then slowly, this isn't so bad. And then slowly turns into conversations and then started to get sales. But the boss turned out that he was a little slimy and sleazy and whatever. And so I got to this point where I'm like, screw this. I'm going to shift my business to do this exact approach. So then I started going door to door I left that, went door to door in my own business.
So
And that's where
this was to sell your banners to bands doing door to door.
so I shifted it to more like business signage, business printing.
Gotcha.
Uh, so I would just walk into businesses and give them my little flyer. And, you know, I was like, oh, we'll do anything. Could be window graphics or paper printing or whatever.
So good.
And yeah, and that's where I started out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was your first journey into entrepreneurship was banners,
Yeah,
creating a business, a printing business, if I'm correct, right?
that's right. That's right.
And that was your humble beginnings. Where did you end up? Where are you now? Like, what was the growth like? What is that little
Yeah,
journey like?
yeah.
Or
So
big journey?
I still have that business. And man, what a journey. So I was doing the door-to-door game. I started to make a little bit of money and I was camping out. So, you can picture this. I I would camp out in this shed basically. And I was cooking off a barbecue and I had my food in a little cooler and I'm running my laptop off one of those little power adapters that go in your cigarette lighter of the car. And so
Wow.
this is how I'm working. And I would drive into the local city and then I would go door to door and I'd hand my flyers out and try to get leads. And then I'd usually sleep overnight in my car and then I'd do it again the next day and then I would drive back to my little shed, right? So, it was fine. It was what it is. Single
That
guy,
is
young
that
enough.
is that is so persistent. I see a lot of younger or people wanting to be entrepreneurs or people wanting to get into business and life, and um, then so many people just aren't prepared to go those extra yards, right? And that 9 yards that you've got to go to get things going. Everybody wants that quick, easy buck,
Yeah.
but to make a business work, there's no doubt. And I speak to lots of entrepreneurs. I hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs, and we often speak about the immense amount of energy and commitment and focus you need to put into a business to make it successful. Um,
Yeah.
and to sleep in your car, to do it consistently for how long was that? How long did that go on for?
That specific phase was about a year. Was
Right, a
about a
year,
year and
12
a half.
months, 12 months of consistently doing that, right? You
Yeah.
stayed focused on the game of growth for 12 months. So what was it like sleeping and like living that kind of thing? Or talk me through that. I mean, that's such a interesting journey.
I just think I grew up in an environment. So my mom was 16 when she had me, and my dad wasn't around. And we grew up in a small town. She was poor, working multiple jobs to get by. So I think from an early age, I was just scrappy. Just kind of like do whatever you got to do to get by. Um, and
Gotcha.
it's funny because to me, it was sort of like it was just I just did it. I really agree with what you're saying about that people want the quick buck. And I think one of the advantages of being in the spot that I was in was sort of like burn the boats. So it was like I didn't have a choice. It was find a way or make a way. Like to go back to the job seemed worse than to keep persevering through the path that I was on. And I always knew I could go back to that if I like really wanted to, but like no part of me wanted to go back to that. And so that I think that's what it was. Is I just kept going. Um, but there was a big thing that I also think played a factor here. Have you ever, the book The 4 Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss? Do you know that
Yes.
book?
Great
Okay,
book.
so I had that book on audio, and I was listening to it. It was maybe the first audio book I'd ever had. And I would listen to it, and I'd never heard this kind of thing before. Like this idea of build a business and trap. Like I didn't grow up around that kind of thinking. And I think something happened. I must have listened to that book 100 times over that year. And I
Goodness.
I believe that I literally programmed my subconscious to create that vision and think in that way. Because I was 3 years from that point of sleeping in the shed until we were 4 years to our first million in sales. And then I had an employee and the business was running, and I spent like 6 months traveling through Central America. And I believe it was because I listened to that it was all I focused on. And, I really think we go towards what we focus on. And so
So
that
good.
became my vision. And I was talking to people, I was living in the shed talking to people about this big business I was going to build. And a few of
Right.
my friends were like, this guy's lost it. Like he's gone. Like he's nuts. Like people were legit worried. And but in my head it was already done. You know, it was
Wow.
already built. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
there was zero doubt. And then it seems like it happened so fast because I was in that place of belief.
Wow, that's so good, so good. So how many people would live in a shed plug with their computer and phone plugged into their battery in their car, and then just have that mindset of belief that it's possible. I can do this, right? Like that is so good. It's
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
missing in a lot of people's life is that just believing, right? Believing, and it's that, I think what for me what you highlighted on there was this an identity shift, right? We talk about identity
Mm.
a lot, and if you have ingrained this identity in you, and you like you're listening to this thing over and over and over and over again, it shifted your identity, right? Coming from a place of poverty to a place of where I have this belief that I can do it. I believe I can do it, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. Like that is a huge shift,
Mm.
and,
Hmm.
and I love that, right? I love that so much. Now, talk to me about the growth of your business. How did you start? Like you've done pretty well, and I want to know what that journey's been like, the growth of your business.
Sure. Um, so from that point, I got to about doing the door to door. I got to about I think we reached about 150,000 a year. I say we, it was me. And I was starting to really try to understand the online marketing because I just didn't want to keep doing the door to door. Like it sucked, especially the winters here. It was awful. Um, so I was trying to figure out the online, and I know you've spent a lot of time there as well, and you probably had a similar thing where, I spent money on as I was making money, I was trying different things, and I try a few ads, but I wouldn't get results, and sort of this trying to figure it out. And I remember the day that I got my first call from a lead on my website, somebody calling, and I just answered the phone, just sort of like, hello, like I didn't really, and then they're like, oh, is this, KA Media? And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. How can I help you? Try to snap into this professional mode. Um, and so at that point, I started to be like, okay, I need to be all in on this. I know that I can grow this. This is early days, right? I'm maybe 2009, 2010. It's not like
Right.
now with everywhere you turn, somebody's teaching you how to build, trying to do different things online and all the ads programs. Like barely anybody was even on Facebook at the time.
Right.
So I was really honed in there. I opened a little workshop because I needed a place to make my signs, and there was this old Chinese food restaurant in my hometown. So I rented this little spot for dirt cheap. Now in the back of it was still the like greasy woks and the fryers, and the walls were all covered with deep years of deep fry slime. And this is the first kind of like office. And so then I hired this employee, this guy Dave, and Dave and we're going to take on the world. So together we're like we're going to crack this online thing, and we kept just sort of figuring out little bits and pieces. You crack something and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we were big on organic traffic, but we weren't really converting, and then we were trying ads, and then you slowly start to piece things together. And then there was a couple big shifts. So one was, do you know Simon Sinek? His
Yeah.
message start with why. So I remember the day that I came in and Dave played that video. I'd just gone to the bank. I was trying to get a credit card because since I'd ruined my credit and everything else, it was like, they were, no. So I was using one of those prepaid Money Mart credit cards where I'd have to get a deposit from a client, drive to the Money Mart, put the money on the card, go back, call the supplier. I was doing this. So I was mad because the bank wouldn't give me a loan or a credit card. And I thought it was a big shot because we were doing 150,000 a year, right? I'm like, how are they not lending me money? I mean, I don't even know if I had profit or not. So,
Right.
so I remember walking in the door and Dave goes, "You got to watch this video." And when you're kind of in an irritated mood, and somebody's like, "Oh, you got," and you're like, you almost want to be like, "Not right now." But I was like, "Okay, fine, whatever." And he shows me this video with Simon Sinek, and basically he's breaking down. how great companies talk about the why. You know, the whole thing is about your message of why versus most companies talk about what they do. And we
Yeah.
stepped back and we said, and it just, I knew there was something there. And so we had this like whiteboard on the wall because, you know, we thought that was cool, right? And so then we go back and we're writing all this different stuff. And then I had this aha, we're not focused on one target market. We're not focused on an avatar. We're trying to sell our products, but we're not really thinking about the customer and the customer's why. And so this was such a turning point because we sort of stood back and we thought, okay, we're selling all these different products to all these different people. And it was this, okay, and I had this flash of insight, you know, praise the Lord that I got this, that I said I need to pick one product and I need to pick one customer and we
Wow.
need to make our message around that. And so I did that and I said to Dave, he was doing a lot of the online work and the web stuff. And I was like, Dave, this is what we need to do. And he's like, no way, man, we're gonna lose all the customers. Like if we're just focused on one thing with these one, like, what about every, you know, that fear, right? Of, and I'm like, my God, I was like, no, man, I know. And we kind of argued about it because he was an employee, but he was really committed to helping me, right? I said, no, we got to try it. So we did it. And I'm telling you, it was like overnight, the business exploded. Like it took off
Wow.
so crazy. And people would start calling and they would just say, I don't know what it is, but we had to call you. Like, and our message was so different from anyone in our industry. And we were just hitting at such a deeper level
Right.
that Matt, we were working with companies like LG Electronics and Disney and these mega brands out of this crappy little Chinese food restaurant. I'm still using a prepaid Money Mart credit card, and we're dealing with these like with these mega brands. Like you couldn't even it seems
That's
impossible to look
insane.
back on it, but that was
Wow.
it. And we grew by tens of thousands per month. Like within a couple months, we were 50, 60,000 a month, and then, you know, 100,000. Like it just took off. It went crazy.
How interesting is that? And had have a similar journey where we tend to want to serve everybody right in the beginning. We tend to want to serve how many people can we serve? And it that is so dissected, right? It's just it disperses your focus, it disperses your energy, and you can't have success. And having that epiphany going, I need to get clear on my avatar. I need to get clear on a focus, a target. That changes everything, right? And it's knowing, I always speak about it's always knowing who you serve, right? Which is good, and also who you don't serve.
Mm,
Um, my journey when I started in the real estate business, I wanted to serve everybody in real estate. And I
hmm.
found out very quickly that that's near impossible. And then as I started honing my skills in real estate, I found that there were like just in my segment, like I have a very tiny niche in the real estate business. I even found that in my tiny niche, in a small area, in a small country where we were making a lot of money, that still there was an avatar that I didn't want to serve because that avatar was pulling energy from me and using up my time and resources that I didn't want to spend on them, even though it would have been good to do, like it would be helpful for them. I had to kind of say, I don't want to serve this person. And then there were these two other avatars, which then helped me grow my business. And the same as what you're saying, the minute you focus on what that avatar, the right avatar, the one that's going to serve you and you can serve the best, everything changes, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That was exactly my experience. And um, that's cool that you've had that. I see that in real estate. I see that with people that I know trying to be everything to everyone.
It's impossible.
Hmm.
You can't. And this is the premise of this podcast is Project Focus is about the idea and context of if you think you want to serve everybody, you can't. And if you're not focused on a direction, on a path, like for instance, you just mentioned your why, it then becomes a mute journey, right? It's so hard if you're not crystal clear. And for me, in my journey, I found that focus is the fundamental magic ingredient to success, right? I don't think I know anybody that's been successful that hasn't had focus as part of that in their life. And I noticed
Mm.
in your journey from going from where you were to where you are growing your business to, I think you said 14, $15 million. Is that correct? In a
Yeah.
short period of time, right? That would have taken a lot of focus, right? It would have
Hmm.
taken you to stay on path. Tell
Hmm.
me, tell me. I'm interested to know what is your, what is what is that thing that helps you stay focused on your days? What was the journey like to stay focused on what you had to do every day? Because you're going through a lot of, everyone goes through a conflict, um, distraction, fear of failure. There's all these things that happen, right? What was your little secret sauce to keep you going, motivated every day to keep focused?
It's interesting. Now I understand tools like now I use a lot of visualization and I use mindset tools to focus. But then I think it was the vision, the thing that I was really excited about. And I also am a big one for doing what we're something we're excited to do. Like I actually discovered really early on that I enjoyed the ads and online marketing and the conversion and the data and the numbers. Because to me, it always felt like this is the vision of where I want to go, money, travel, freedom. And then it felt like that was a vehicle to get there. And I loved the puzzle of it. Like I just love I want to crack the code. I want to do the ad and in if I could just get the 2% increase in, the convert, like it was the challenge. Like even now as he starts to talk about it, I almost get excited all over again, right? And so this is a big thing. Like when I work with people now, it's kind of one of the things that I really try to get across to people. Do what you love. Like you got to be doing something you love. Because if you don't, if you're waking up and the idea of doing, and you're like, ugh, like I got to go do that marketing thing. I got to go do, like, if you're in that place, you are not going to build some awesome scalable thing. Like it is not going to come from that. And I think early on, I just got really lucky that I stumbled into a way to build a business that I was excited about. And it just worked for me. And even that, it was narrow focus in one channel. Like we were running ads and we had our like landing like couple pages on the website and it was phone call. Like the funnel was so few steps and it was just like optimize, improve and iterate and just work it. And I'm still running now. This is like from that time, 13, 14 years later, the same ads, the same landing page. I got salesperson having a very similar phone call, and it's been generating income and sales for years, and it just runs like on autopilot, like its own system. And so I think that people get now, especially, they feel like they need to be everywhere doing everything. And I just don't think it's true. And it depends on what level your business is at. I mean, if you're under 100,000, under a couple 100,000, you barely need any technology.
Yeah,
You may not even need social media to do 100,000 a year. You definitely
yeah,
don't need to be on multiple platforms. Now, you want to get to 100,000 a month, you're going to need to get a little bit more honed in, but even 100,000 a month, I mean, that's still not much. You want to get to 100,000 a week, you're going to need more tech and more pieces and more things in place, right? So I always think, where are you? What do you need? And people are confused because they follow big influencers that have massive following across every platform and they think they've got to do that too when they're doing 30,000 a year in sales. And it's like, well,
yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. Like pick one that you love that you'd be excited to do every day and just do it. And if you do it every day consistently, you're going to get good at it and you're going to get results. Like to me, it's
And
that simple.
and that's the focus that you got to put into it, right? It's getting the skills. I don't know if you've ever read the book, Become So what Become So Good They Can't Ignore You. In this book,
Huh.
I can't remember exactly the author now. I have so many books I've read lately, but it's Become So Good They Can't Ignore You. And in the book, he talks about this idea of um, doing something you love, chasing your passion versus doing something that you're good at. And he highlights a very important statistic of how in our society we're driven to, follow your passion, follow your passion, follow your passion. And you brought that up, which is interesting because in his book he says it's more important to follow your skills or become so good at something that they just can't ignore you. And what's interesting about what you just said is that because in business, let's face it, there's certain things that you're passionate about, and there's certain things that you have to do that is just like you've got to
Yeah,
do it,
yeah.
and it's just like it sucks, but it's got to be done. It's mundane and it's repetitive and it's continuous, right? So in business, there's always passion and stuff that you don't like. But what I really noticed about what you said is that you found this thing that was so cool and interesting that you started doing it over and over and over again, and your skill level increased. So you became so good at this thing that it this just became really enjoyable because you then triggered the skill thing, and the skill then made you the money, right?
Mm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the thing?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's an interesting way to think of it. Yeah, you're totally right. You find the thing you like, and then the skill came as a result.
And the skill is what drove your business to the next level, right? You became good at this marketing component, which then drove your business, even though you have to do accounting and you have to look after staff and
Mhm.
you have to do all these other things. But
Mhm.
it was this one unique skill that you honed and became really good at that helped drive your business. And I think it's been the same for me. Um, when I left my job as a well-paid construction manager, I was doing 180 million dollar projects. It was huge. I had 40, 50 people under me, and I was always getting a little pat on the back. I was good at that. That was my skill, and I built that out from sweeping floors. And when I left, I had no skills, like no marketing. I don't know anything. And exactly the same thing that you just mentioned, you found the little thing that you wanted to solve the puzzle. I love that.
Mm.
You wanted to
Mm.
solve the puzzle. And it was like that for me. And when I learned that there was this puzzle to be solved and I could do the things and I started learning those skills, it was the skills that I learned in fixing those puzzle pieces together that allowed me to grow my business. And it's really interesting that you say that because that allowed or allows us, maybe it's different for different people, but it allowed me to stay super focused on growing the business because I was became so good at these things. I was standing out ahead of my competition because of it, and the growth just kind of became exponential. That's so
Mm.
interesting. I love that story, Chris. It's just it's so exciting. Let's shift it a little bit of gear here.
Mm.
Let's talk about it because you've had a lot of success in your business. You've grown a business. You've you're a successful entrepreneur. Um, Tell me, what is some of the traps, the mindset traps that you see that a lot of people, entrepreneurs among you, um, face these days? Like, well, what's going on out there that you see things that people are not really doing the right way?
Mm. That's a great question. I, kind of going back to what we were talking about, I think that a lot of them are trying to do too many things. Um, and there's also one thing I see a lot is where people don't realize they have inner conflict that's getting in the way. So when my business reached, I don't know, I was maybe, I don't know how many years in, maybe 7 or 8 years in, and I kind of lost, I wasn't as excited about it anymore. I kind of gotten bored of it, and I was sort of in this, debating what else to do. And I kind of stumbled into teaching marketing and sales and thought, I'm going to run some courses. This is probably 7, 8 years ago. And I ran a group, and there was 25 people in my first group, 23 or 25, and we did an 8-week thing. and I was going through all my steps that I had learned, and people were they were really excited about it, and and I was fulfilled. I'm like, oh, you know what? I found my true calling. This is amazing. We reached the end, and they had all this plan of exactly what they were going to go and do. And then what I noticed was nobody did anything. Like they didn't go do any of the stuff. So they sat and they made this plan like target market and gonna da 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 da, and then they didn't do anything. And I'm like, well, this is weird. And so I'm like, oh, so I ran another group, similar numbers, and I think we went a couple weeks longer, we'd like 10 weeks, and I poured everything in, and again they were excited and they're like, oh, I understand why my business isn't growing and what's going on and da da da, and they made all these plans. And again, like people weren't going and doing anything. And so I stopped doing it because I didn't want to just sell courses. Like I was now looking for something to be more fulfilled in. And and that led me down this rabbit hole of why don't we do why don't we always do the things we know we need to do? Kind of what you said a second ago, like there's your skill and your passion, but there's also the other things in the business that you also have to do too, right? Um, and so I started kind of going down this, and I went deep into the mindset realm. I did a ton of training. I've got a variety of therapy and mindset tools and hypnosis and you name it, all this stuff. And what I learned was that I learned how our mind often distracts us with illusions of progress. So let me explain what I mean. So I see a lot of this is probably the biggest mistake I see with entrepreneurs, that they get stuck in this trap where there's things that could grow their business, but they're busy, they're not productive. And sometimes it's even in the personal development space, like people that are reading books and spending time studying and spending time all doing all this, but yet they're not over here actually building their business. So it's this illusion of doing something, but months, maybe years go by, and there's nothing actually being built. It's like somebody wants to build a house and they're like, yeah, I'm going to build this house. And then all they do is they study designs and they look at plans and they talk about it and they're busy. So the mind comes up with, here's what I've learned is the mind comes up with these traps intentionally because it wants to keep us stuck at the comfortable level we're at. Like anything new and different, the part of our brain interprets as, well, we don't know, so it could be unsafe. So even if the current zone sucks, like even if financially it's not where we want to be, it's known and it's safe and it's comfortable. So I see a lot of people in this trap where they're busy, they're overwhelmed, or they're just procrastinating, and they're sort of stuck at this place because there's some hidden unconscious fear, some hidden unconscious thing. So that may not be exactly the answer you're saying, but it kind of goes with this, along with the trying to do too many different things, not honing in on the one thing and not doing it consistently. I run into people all the time where they've got a big vision and they want to do great things. And then, I look at their actions and I look at what they're doing, and they're going in circles. They're on a cash flow roller coaster, and they're just not building, they're not building a foundation, they're not building it up, which surprisingly, like, and you probably, I'd be curious if you agree. When you look back, you realize that a lot of the successes were really simple. It was actually quite easy. It was the consistency and the focus and just doing that over time, right?
Yeah, that's that's really true. And I love what you're saying about how people um, put themselves in that place where they have an idea, but then they perpetually overthinking or trying to find excuses to keep learning or doing or trying like and that instead of taking action. I've experienced that myself in the early years, and it's the fundamental truth of all of this is that mindset is the game that we're playing, right? As an entrepreneur, 99% of what we do in a day is a mindset game. And
Mhm.
for me, I think focus or staying engaged or putting your energy in the right places is super important, right? Because as soon as you start um, diverging your attention, and it's not just in business, it's with your family and in your life and around the people, right? Anything that pulls you off path, and it's easy to do because your mind has these messages and it's wanting to, like you said, be in a comfort zone. And comfort
Mm.
zone is the death of business, right? Comfort zone is the death of progress. Comfort zone is that it's annihilation of your dreams, really. That's a soundbite. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know some of the habit. What are some of the habits and routines that help you stay on track, even when challenges arise?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of challenges, a lot of cash flow challenges, not knowing how to grow the business, um, getting to 14 staff and 5,000 square foot office um, and this giant print equipment. Like I bought printers that would take 10-foot rolls and we had a
Wow.
like massive sewing machine that's like buying a house, right? Um, and going back to what you said before, not doing the things you need to do. I wasn't paying enough attention in numbers and things like that. I hired somebody that to run some things and we'll just leave it at things didn't work out as expected. And I ran into some major cash flow challenges. And I'll tell you, there was a week where it was actually we were building a house and I was away on a trip and I got this call sort of like, well, we're tight on cash right now. And I thought we were having record sales months. And I'm like, what do you mean we're tight on cash? I mean, we're killing it right now. And it's like, well, I don't know. And I'm thinking, oh, you know what? It's receivables. We must have, a couple 100,000 in receivables that'll come in. It's fine. So we'll use our line of credit. Well, no, we've already been using the line of credit. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'll put some money from this house build in to help, cover. And so I start pouring, putting money in, thinking it's going to come back. And it didn't come back. And so, long story short, there was some numbers that were being fudged and some things that happened that weren't above board, and I just didn't exactly know. And I reached this point where, man, it was upside down. Like it was really bad. And I remember a week of coming in and like I don't know how I'm going to make payroll. I was at one point I was 150,000 behind on bills and suppliers wanting to cut us off and it was awful. And this was a turning point of really understanding mindset tools. So I'd been spending the years studying and I'd learned all these tools. But have you ever learned things, read a book, got something, but you didn't apply it? You
Oh,
got some aha, you're like, oh, that's great. Or you take a course and then you don't go implement the work. Well, I learned, I mean, that's information, but information is not transformation, right? It's the implementation of information that creates transformation.
so
So,
true.
uh, so I've been learning all these mindset tools, but I wasn't really using them on myself. And so I hit this point. It was really bad. I thought I was going to go bankrupt. I thought I was going to lose everything. And it was right at the time my first daughter was born. And I just, it, it was awful. And I'd wake up and I was just stressed and I felt burned out and just the weight of it, just anxiety. And I had this one day where I sat down and I was just sitting there and I had my eyes closed and I just started thinking about the future and I started visualizing and I was like imagining, I'm like, what would it be like, if I could just solve this? And so I just pictured turning the business around and, our cash flow problems gone and our house build was on hold because I pulled the money out of it. So we were in this 400 and some square foot place with a newborn and so I just was like, finishing the house, and I just started to visualize. And what I noticed was as I did that, I started to feel different. Like it was like I just started to feel like, my emotion. I just started to kind of come out of it. And I did that for a few minutes. I opened my eyes and I was like, okay, what are the few things I need to go to do today? And I'd have moments getting stressed again. And it was never any big groundbreaking, oh, here's the revelation to just change it overnight. It was more like, brick by brick. And the next day I would wake up and I do the same thing. And man, I changed it so fast. Like it happened. I turned the business around to the most profitable it's ever been and finished the house and did all those things. And so now to this day, every single morning, I do the same ritual, the same routine. So I wake up and I visualize. So I imagine the future. I like to go like 2, 3 years out. I've heard some study that says we underestimate what we can do in 3 years. And so I go 3 years out, like, what does it look like? But there's a way I do it. So, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What do I hear? So I create a moment and I just imagine the moment and I'm
Could
in
could
it
you
and I
could you
see.
sorry, could you say that again? Say those three things again,
Yeah,
please, for me, just so the listeners understand that, because I think that that's super important. It's really resonating with me.
sure. So, so if you imagine, a few years in the future, and we can almost just kind of do it as just a quick mock thing. So imagine 3 years from now, anybody listening, imagine, what do you want life to be like? Where do you want your business, your income? Imagine a moment and don't worry about like let go of between now and then. The how, let go of the how, but just picture the result, the future. So what does it look like? How would you feel from that place? Like imagine who would be around you. Imagine yourself talking to somebody. Your body language is probably different. How would it feel to accomplish that? What kinds of things might you say to people? And it's like you want to make it so vivid and real. See it, feel it, hear it. So it's like, what would you see? What would you feel? What would you even hear? Like, what would people be saying to you?
Wow,
And
that's so
so
good. That's so good.
that's transformational. So that using that, and this is what I did way back when with the Tim Ferriss 4 Hour Work Week. This is when I first started my business and I was sleeping in the shed. I didn't know it. I was doing this at that time. I was listening to his book and I was in my mind going, I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to run this business that's going to do this thing. And so I had no
Then
idea,
you
right?
then you kind of lost it, I'm assuming,
I
along the
did.
way, and
I
then you
did.
kind of it sparked because I am an advocate for that visualization. Um,
Mm,
it's a very powerful tool. I don't think people use it enough these days in understanding how important it is to set your subconscious in a into the gears that need to drive your whole being forward, right? Was when your
mm,
subconscious is working with you, life is moving in that direction. And
hmm
I feel oftentimes I've experienced it as well where we don't, everything is just crazy. Our life is, we're just kind of on autopilot. We're just drifting, but you can't run life. You can't have a life when you're just drifting. You have to have a life where you know where you're going. And that, because if your energy and your subconscious isn't driving you in that direction, your, what do they call that? When your mind picks up on things, right? It picks up on the
Yeah.
wrong things. Your
Yeah. That's right.
reticulating activating system, right? It's
Yeah.
picking up on
Yeah.
the wrong things rather than it picking up on the right things and moving you forward. And I think that is such a powerful message that you're speaking about there because it highlights the importance of how the visualization, how you believe in what you believe in yourself, and how you see your future is so important in driving you forward from a day-to-day basis, right?
hmm hmm Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
super. That's super amazing. Could we jump onto? We're kind of coming to an end, and I want to kind of touch on a few big points here. Um,
sure.
I I know that mindset for you is uh, an important topic and subject. I think you're helping a lot of entrepreneurs with that these days, if I'm correct, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's what we're working on.
what are some of the mindset myths you'd like to debunk for some of the listeners out there today?
I love that question. Oh man, there's so many. One for example is reading 100 books. I'm a fan of reading. You mentioned the book earlier. I wrote that one down, but I think something I learned about is on-demand learning. For some people, it's what do you need to learn right now? If you're learning about all these leadership things, but you're not even getting your first $10,000 in sales, it's like you don't need to worry about that. So I think there's a myth um, of of learning. You know, I think people get into that trap. And again, it's a way the mind distracts away from work. I think one of the other ones is the morning routines. And I kind of went off the rails on this for a while where my morning routine got way too big and I would take up all this time just like doing all these things in the morning. You know, now I've got a shorter, I love a cold plunge, some visualization work. You know, I'm big on diet and health, but I've got kids now and busy and businesses, and it's funny how quick you can kind of cut the crap and get to work and do the important things. You know, before kids, it was easy to spend hours doing nothing. Um, so I think that
Was it
I think
nothing
people,
though?
huh?
It wasn't nothing though. It was
It wasn't nothing, but it was just being busy on things often that didn't matter.
gotcha.
So I think that's a big place that people are stuck. You know, the one we were talking about earlier where they're trying to do too many things. And you know, a big one that I would say I've gotten more recently is is speed. Is really how crucial speed is. So you know, in the past, I remember when I first wanted to start sharing this mindset stuff and I started doing my own, I was like, I'm going to do a course. And I'd spend 6 months building this course and videos. And like, you know, I was just in the minutia of the weeds of building this thing. But again, it was my mind getting in my own way. Well, now what I believe is you want to go as fast as possible because the faster you go, the faster you learn. Like when I built my business early and I was sleeping in my car, like I didn't have a choice but to go fast. And because I went fast, I got the feedback really fast and I could adjust course and I could and I got results really quick. Like I think of
Yeah,
it like if you wanted to master baking a cake and it's like say you were going to go into a cake competition at some point, you just had to master building making the perfect chocolate cake. Well, if you made one every 3 months, how long would it take? You know, you'd be years trying to figure it out. But if you did one every month, you know, you might take like, you know, maybe 10 months. If you did one every week, what if you did one every day? What if you did one multiple times a day? So it's like the more that we do something in a tighter time frame, it's kind of like immersion, like immersive learning. Like I don't know if you've ever learned any other languages. Well, I guess you do speak Australian and but like I learned Spanish years ago, and when I was immersed in it, my learning would go really fast. But the more spread out it was so hard to learn. And so one of the biggest things I really urge people to think about is go as fast as you can so you learn it. It's kind of the fail faster. Like they always say you've got to fail and you want to fail faster and that. But to me, I never really understood what that meant. I just think go as quick as you can and do things today, right now. Um, get out of trying to make it perfect. Just do it as fast as possible so you can see what works and what doesn't work. I think, you know,
that's
that's
so
probably
true.
the top few that come to mind for me is of mistakes that people are making. And then you know what? One more would be not hiring and not getting around the right people. Like maybe not having the right coaches or mentors, people going to push you like further better, or being in the right masterminds and environments. Because if you're just staying around the same like thinking all the time and you don't have anybody around you like raising you up to think differently, it's easier to stay stuck in your current limiting beliefs that you think are reality. Like we think what we believe is reality, but people at another level can so easily challenge our thinking and be like, no, that's just not like you're stuck on this, like it doesn't make any sense. Do you know what I mean?
So
So
true.
I think who we surround ourselves with is a huge one.
That is so important. And I I experienced that in a big way when I was growing up in my early days. I had a lot of bad influences in my life. My mentors
Same. Me
weren't
too.
really people that I would aspire to these days anyway. And it left me in a place where I was not doing the right things. But I got to a point in my life where I realized that the people around me were affecting my mindset, were affecting my growth, and I had to cut them off. And it's hard. It's hard when you have friendships and you have relationships and you have people around you that have been there for a while, and you have to kind of let them go for the bigger you, the growth in you. And so I did that. And it was probably one of the biggest shifts in my life was surrounding myself with people that are aspiring to be better versions of themselves, and especially entrepreneurs. Nowadays, I only hang around with people that have got businesses, um, and people that are striving to grow businesses successfully. I don't think I have anyone in my network that doesn't have that kind of background, and it's so motivating. It's so encouraging, and what's beautiful about hanging around with people that are in the same headspace as you, in the same growth uh, kind of environment as you, is that you're learning from each other. What's it? That mastermind effect, right? It's
Mm.
like you talk about stuff, and this person's doing this thing, and you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And you talk to other people, and they're like taking stuff from you, and it's like a really
Mm.
immersive experience, right? And that's the best way to grow, as I think, as an entrepreneur, and staying focused. I think it's one of the most important things is getting yourself around people that have that can help push you forward, right? That drive you, motivate you. I think that is really important. So
Yeah, I've had that with you, Matt. I mean, I've taken notes before we even started recording. We were chatting about ads, chatting about things, and you were giving me a couple little nuggets, and immediately I was like, oh yeah, I got to write that one down. I got to remember that. And being on your masterclass recently, so I couldn't agree with you more. Who you spend time around, so
true.
valuable.
Yeah, man. I want to ask, just as we're heading off on the last section of this podcast, I want you to give some advice. I mean, there might be young people, old people, middle aged, whatever. Let's not talk about ages. I'll say that again. There might be people on our podcast really interested to know about how what some mindset tools, some because in my growth in business, one of the key ingredients, and I think most entrepreneurs would agree, is mindset and using tools to stay focused. What are some of the things, or give me one big thing, one great big thing that you can give to our listeners right now to help them to stay focused, to stay in the game, and to help them grow their businesses into the future?
Oh man. So the biggest one is something I've been really cultivating out lately, and how to describe it is the unstoppable you. You know, the moments when you're in your most confident, flowing, unstoppable version of you, when you're just like, man, I can do anything. Like for me, I'm like pistols are flying. I'm just in another zone. You're in flow. You're not in here. You're not in your head. Like you're in the moment, and you even say things that like the stuff that comes out of you is at a higher level. Accessing that, we are more resourceful when we are in that state. And when I say resourceful, I mean ideas, information, beliefs, actions, everything. So part of, when I was talking about the visualizations in the morning, that one of the things I realized is doing that puts me into a better state of mind. And from a better state of mind, I'll do more. So if I'm in a place of fear, stress, burnout, like some lower vibe state of mind, I'm not going to do, like, I'm barely going to do anything. And I think a lot of people, I'm going to guess not your listeners, because if they're listening to you, then they're probably above this. But a lot of people out there are just stuck at such a low vibe place, and their life is a reflection of that. But when you learn to tap into more of yourself, and whether it's visualization, and that's my morning routine, right? The visualization, cold plunge, like diet, different, like good sleep, the things that make me feel, working out, the gym, because then I get in that zone, and then it's so easy to go fast. It's easier to feel more confident. Let me just try this stuff. Who cares what happens? And so if I was to give one big nugget, it's really spend more time cultivating just a sense I love the word unstoppable. There's something about that word for me that just, it's like that zone of the best version of you. you will create, anybody will create more from that place. Like that's the biggest one.
Yeah, man. It's so true. Energy is the pathway to having that the life that you want, right? And if you don't have
Hmm.
energy, if you don't have the capacity to draw from that energy, it sucks because being in that low place, and if you're constantly in that low place, it's not a good. What it does is it just you can't be creative. You can't think about new ideas. You can't think about growth, and it's a place you don't want to be in. And then, like you just said, the sleep, the exercise, the body, everything plays such a vital role in that. Uh, one of the things I find is, or I experienced when I was younger, there was a lot of people talking about mindset, and mindset um, has been around for decades. And when I first started listening to the stuff about mindset, everyone started creating these diagrams and this thing about this part of your brain. We had this lizard brain, we had this um, what do they call it? The monkey brain and all this type of stuff. And I latched onto that as an idea when I first started learning about mindset because that's what everyone was talking about. And over the years, I discovered this huge shift. And I read a lot of books about focus and mindset, and I watch a lot of uh, stuff about science of the brain because I want my brain to be like everything is about the mind, right? And what I learned, which is so life changing for me, was that it's not pieces of the brain, it's your entire body. Your
Mm.
entire body is your mindset. And when I
Mm.
learned that and I shifted my whole, like everything shifted when I started realizing that my body is my mind. My mind and my body work together, they're not separate. And so if I'm eating something that's not good and I feel tired, well, that's because my body has sent a signal that's not, there's no congruency. Or if I kick my toe, right, it puts me in a bad mood. And
Mm.
so understanding how important the body and the mind work together changed everything for me. And so, as you said, how important it is morning routines, getting your mind and body in that place, eating the right
Hmm.
food, sleeping well. Like these are the tools I think that so many of us have to be so focused and deliberate on because when your mind and body is working together, your life is better, right? You just feel good, you get in flow easier. I used to think that I used to think that you'd be a successful person if you just focused on this monkey thing and this lizard thing and this like and
Yeah.
nowadays, I'm like, that is just the most ridiculous context because I know
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
that when I'm eating well, I'm going to feel good, right? If I eat
Yeah.
the wrong food in the morning, like if I eat say a high sugar thing in the morning, I'm crashing by 12, right? My body, I'm not going to be thinking. But if I eat good, healthy foods, I keep my fats up, and I'm thinking about what I'm consuming, boom, my whole day flows better. I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but
Oh,
that's what I found.
100%. Yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah, completely.
So, how can people get to know more about you, Chris? What is
Yeah, so people can find me in a couple places. Wherever Facebook, if you look up facebook.com/Crawford Chris, Instagram, Chris J. Crawford, TikTok, Chris Crawford Mindset. I've been doing lots of stuff on TikTok. I've got a book, should have had a copy here to hold up called Stop Procrastinating Your Purpose. And in that,
wow?
I write a lot about these mindset pieces and tools that I've learned and I use. So if you go to me on any social media, give me a follow. You can find a link to my book there, and reach out or shoot me a message through any of those. I connect with anybody that tries to find me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Chris. You've been
Yeah,
fantastic. Have an amazing day, guys. If you want to find out more, there'll be a link below in this video. Have a chat, catch up with Chris. He's got a lot of good resources on mindset, business mindset, and growth. Check him out. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
thanks, Matt. This was a blast.
Awesome, man.